welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my March wrap-up. No, what? Today's video is going to be my April wrap-up. So somehow in the month of April, I was able to read 10 books, which was epic. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty awesome. And I'm very proud of that fact, actually, because I was still working, I'm in grad school, and trying to do this, and also finding time to read. So obviously I had no social life, and I did nothing except for read. The first book that I read was Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas, and this is the kind of prequel to The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. And this book revolves around the parental figures in The Hate You Give. So it's kind of like a backstory, and the main character is Maverick, who was Star's father in The Hate You Give, and he was one of my favorite characters in that book, and so I was really excited when this one came out. I'm someone that really likes backstories, so typically if there's gonna be some like novel that comes out kind of surrounding a backstory, then I'm probably gonna like it, and I really loved this book. I am not a harsh critiquer. I give stars very easily and readily, and I gave this one 5 stars because I really loved it, and it just, having read The Hate You Give, you got like little Easter eggs from that book that you're just like, and I don't know, when books do that, I just absolutely love it. There's not like a crazy plot to it, it's just this young 17-year-old black kid growing up, and he has children. I mean, that's pretty much the story, and it's just him overcoming things and trying to make a life for him and his family. The next book I read was Behind Closed Doors, and this was my thriller for my Bookopoly in April, and I don't know, it was interesting. It was more of like a manipulative lies kind of mind game more than like a thriller. There weren't very many parts in it that were like thriller to me, so it wasn't my favorite, but this story takes place in London, and it is about this woman who married this man, and they have the picture perfect marriage, like perfect, and they make sure it looks that way, which is why I like the title, because then it's like behind closed doors stuff is happening. So I don't know, it wasn't really thrillery, it was more like psychologically, but even then, I don't know, it was just kind of more manipulative and emotionally abusive. So I give this 3.5 stars. Wasn't really my favorite. I wouldn't read it again. I mean, if you like these kind of books, I would recommend it. It wasn't terrible. It was a really easy read. It was only 294 pages, and I mean, it wasn't horrible. The next book I read was also part of my Bookopoly, and that was historical fiction. And for that, I read The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. And this was a really good book. When I was reading it, at first I was kind of like, oh, this is going to be like a solid 4 stars throughout it. And at the end, I was a mess. I ugly cried. And I wasn't expecting to do that with this book. So I gave it 5 stars. However, this book is really interesting. It is about the Holocaust, and it's written or narrated by Death. And so Death is a character in this technically, and he like sees everything that's going on. And so throughout the book, we are following this young girl who is deemed the book thief, and there are parts of her life where she finds a book and kind of steals it, which is why he gives her the name the book thief. But you get to know some really great characters, and she is a foster child for this family in Germany, and they end up kind of housing a Jewish person. And so throughout this book, Death gives us little snippets, like kind of what is to come, like what's going to happen to these people we're encountering. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's like, I didn't think the ending was going to be anything. But even with those little snippets, the ending still just hits so hard, and it is just so good. The next 2 books, I'm going to talk about them kind of together. The first was The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle Jensen, and the second was Traitor Queen by Danielle Jensen. This is a duology, and I think there is going to be another book coming out kind of set in the same world. I don't think it's the same characters, but I loved this. If you guys like From Blood and Ash or the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, I would highly check out this series. It is really good. I plan on making a video on it. I just have not yet, but it is really, really good, and it follows this young woman who's been raised her whole life with her sisters to kind of become be an assassin, be a spy, be a kind of seductress almost, because the king wanted them, there's a treaty made where the king would marry one of his daughters to the king of another kingdom, and he wants them to kind of infiltrate that kingdom as they are married and to kind of take it down from the inside. But of course, stuff like that doesn't really happen. It is an enemies to lovers, which is my favorite trope. And I actually just really, really liked the main character. I don't know. I just really liked her. She was really tough. She was really strong, and she just could kick butt. And I really liked her. But I also really liked the king of the country that she was married to. He just is your typical, enemy lover. He was great. For both of these books, I gave each of them 5 stars. I thought the first book was so good, and the ending was just that I did not think that the second book would top it or even kind of redeem itself, because I thought the first one was so good. But I was greatly proved wrong. I'm so happy that the second book turned out how it did. It was, oh my goodness. I honestly, up until the last chapter, I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I didn't know what was going to be resolved. Highly recommend that series. Also, The Bridge Kingdom was a part of my Bookopoly as well, and that was my most recent purchase. The next book that I read was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the first in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. And I read this because I had been seeing it go around a lot, and I knew that there was going to be a show coming out, and I knew that I wanted to watch the show because I haven't watched TV much recently, but when there's a new one coming out that's based off of books, obviously I'm going to do it because this is up my alley. And so I read the first book, and I was hooked. It takes place in what is known as the Grishaverse. It's about this young woman. She has this power that she's had her whole life, but had no idea that she had this power. And she is called the Sun Summoner, and there is this area in the world called the Fold, and that place is full of darkness and terrible creatures. She can be used to destroy the Fold. So when they discover that she is a Sun Summoner, she is kind of introduced as a saint and kind of a walking miracle, a legend brought to life. And I am really excited to see what the rest of the series has. She has a best friend named Mal, who is a tracker, and then there are these Grisha who kind of go by the small science, which I just think is magic. And so once they find out she is Grisha, she goes and studies with them and meets someone named the Darkling, who's kind of like her, except he can summon shadows, whereas she can summon the sun. And yeah, it's just really, really, really good. And I gave this one 4 stars because I think the next 2 can top this. So the next book that I read is actually something that I beta read for on Instagram, and the book is called Noble. I don't have a picture of it. I don't have anything, but I will put the Instagram tag here. And she is a sophomore in high school, which I think is amazing that she's writing a book. And I think it's amazing that she let me beta read for it. As of right now, I'm giving it a 3.5 star rating, but I think after some suggestions and critique that she's been getting from some other people as well as me, it will bump up really well because it's a great story. It's about this young woman who fits this perfect prophecy, and this Lord wants her to become his bride, basically. So he brings her to the castle and kind of trains her to be a noble. While she is there training, there are these 2 kind of spies from the king's army, and they're trying to get some dirt on this Lord. And so one of the generals gets to know the main character, and you can only imagine what happens. However, this book does tackle a lot of darker topics. It tackles there's some sexual stuff, but it's not detailed. It's just kind of alluded to. There is miscarriages. There is like mild-ish torture. I wouldn't really call it torture, more like starvation, capture, kind of stuff like that. And abuse. It definitely tackles abuse. It was a good book. I enjoyed reading it. It was about 300 and something pages long, and I was just really grateful to get the chance to read that. So that was called Noble, and whenever I hear anything about when it's actually going to come out and be published and everything, I will let you guys know, and I will make a video on it. Because yeah, I think that's cool, especially because she's a sophomore in high school. That's incredible. The next book that I read was The Crown of Gilded Bones, which was also part of my Bookopoly, which was my romance, but I knew this was coming out in April and I was going to read it no matter what. This is by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and y'all, I don't really feel like I need to say much. I made an entire vlog on that. If you missed it, I will link it up above because, oh, I need the next one right now. This is the third book in the From Blood and Ash series, and there's just so much. If you don't know what Blood and Ash is, it's about this young woman who's referred to as the Maiden, and she has been raised that way her whole life. No one can lay eyes on her, no one can touch her. She's kind of like trapped without being trapped. And when she turns 19, she was to be used as the Ascension, which you find out what that means in the books. It's kind of difficult to understand when you're not reading the book, so I'm not really going to go into it too much. One of her guards is killed, so she gets a new royal guard, and his name is Hawk. And you can only imagine what happens. I call it romance. It's almost enemies. It's kind of enemies to lovers, but not really. So I'm not going to say much on this one unless like you want more on it. I would highly check out my vlog because I spill some tea in this. Mainly, I just give away spoilers. I gave that 5 stars. I had to. I think I've given every book in it. I might have given From Blood and Ash 4 stars. This one just brought so many curveballs, so many questions. It was so good. The next book that I read was my book of the month pick, which was Libertie, and I gave this 3 stars. I had such high hopes for this, and I think part of the reason of my disappointment is because reading the synopsis for this and then reading the book, I'm like, why is this included in the synopsis if it doesn't even happen until the last half of the book, or it's not crucial to the book at all? But it had so much potential. It's based off of the first African-American female doctor, and the main character, her name is Libertie, and her mom is an African-American doctor, although she can pass as being white, which is how she got her doctorate, or like her doctor degree, her medical degree. Her dad died while her mom was pregnant, so there's no father, and basically the mom really wants, like when Libertie grows up, to have this mother-daughter kind of physician's care doctor's office, but Libertie doesn't really want that. She doesn't really know what she wants, to be honest, like whether she wants to go for the arts or whatever. She just doesn't want to be a doctor, really. She's very knowledgeable, but it's just not, she doesn't really care for it. It takes place in the 1800s, late 1800s, and I really thought that this would like start off with her being a young woman and kind of just finding her way through life, but it starts off with her as a young girl, and then it goes to her being older, and it's just, I don't know, it was a little confusing. It was a make you think book, and I don't really care for those. I like fluff. I don't want to think when I'm reading for fun, so it just wasn't my cup of tea. Now the last book, I haven't fully read it yet. I'm just kind of reading it as I go. It's not one that I like want to constantly read because it's just informational, and that is Beyond the Pill, by Dr. Jolene Brighten, and it's basically just about birth control and how it affects your body. And I'm gonna rate it 3 stars, mainly because like the book is really great for factual stuff about it. Like if you want some facts about birth control and what it's doing to your body, this is fantastic. It also gives some kind of suggestions if you are going off the pill or if you are on it, and like how to kind of balance out your hormones, which is nice. But she like the author has her own like 30-day program, and a lot of the times in the chapter she's just like repeating herself, or she's just saying stuff like, if you follow my 30-day plan, blah blah blah, and I'm like, flip through this. It's kind of boring. Like, I don't want to follow her plan. I think you might have to pay for it. I don't really know. There are some recipes in here, I think, as well, which is kind of nice. But it's just, I mean, informational. You could probably find this stuff on the internet, but I actually kind of like having it in a book format. It's even good if you're not on the pill, just to know what your body produces for hormones and what should produce, and how you can kind of take some certain supplements to do that. It's been very informational, which is nice. Whew. Okay, we made it, and I've already been filming for 24 minutes. Normally these don't take that long, so I normally don't read that much. But that is my April wrap up. Those are all the books that I read in April. I think that's the most I've ever read in a month. Like, ever. I guess we'll see if May can top it. That'd be pretty awesome. I don't know if it will, but I would like to know what your guys' favorite book that you read in April was. Please leave a comment down below and let me know. I would love to hear what you guys have been reading and maybe even get some recommendations from you. So with that being said, guys, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!